Ah yes, everyone's in the merry mood because it is the night before Christmas, and you know what that means. That's right, it's time for you to get off your lazy ass and get those last minute Christmas gifts, which is why this video is sponsored by Captain Sully's Christmas Hits. Buy this for your mum and finally realise why she has difficulty saying she loves you. But speaking of the pointlessness of consumerism, it is time for the 2017 End of the Year Video Game Awards list thing. And here's where the crowd will cheer and clap and applaud and people would throw roses if I had an audience, but I can't afford one, so it's just going to be some music in the background. Yes, it is that time of year where I gloat about some of the best games of the year, and to be honest, it's a good thing this year because there were quite a lot of good things that happened. I would say that 2017 would go down in history as one of the most important years in gaming. Well, apart from a few exceptions like the Mass Effect Andromeda, Battlefront 2, Ukulele being a massive Kickstarter disappointment, the loot box situation, and Games Journalist being shit, but that's no news. But apart from that, there were a lot of exceptionally good games. If you were a gamer, you had a selection this year. And that's why this year's list is going to be a little different. Usually I would do a countdown list from my least favourite to my most favourite, but this year I've said scrap the countdown list and just present to you the 15 games that I think deserve to be talked about and just be mentioned. I'm basically like that teacher who says that everyone's a winner despite the fact that you know that your product is better than Billy's. Seriously, fuck you, Billy, but you can't say that to him because he has some special needs. Right, with that out of the way, there are only two rules this year. Of course, the first one being that only games from 2017 are included in this list. This does include remakes, remasters, games that have been released on early access, and games that were ported over to new platforms. However, I haven't played all the games this year, so there are some games that won't be on this list, so I'm just going to say it about now. The new Zelda game, Cuphead, Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm pretty sure a few others, not going to be on this list, mainly because I haven't had time to play them, or I don't have the system to play them, or I generally don't give a shit about them. That's basically it, so if you're expecting those games on the list, well, too bad. And of course the second rule being this is all my opinions. You might not like the games on the list, that's fine, or maybe, just maybe, you'll find a game on this list that interests you and you'll decide to pick it up because of me, and if that's the case then my work here is done and I'll feel happy about myself for once. But before we go into the list, it's time for the honourable mentions, and there are quite a few. The first one is Rock of Ages 2, Bigger and Bolder, which is essentially Monty Python's History Bowling, a really, really fun game. Gravity Rush 2, a pretty decent sequel, however, throwing children off the edge of the world isn't as fun as the original, which is a bit of a shame. Tokyo 42 is a little bit more style over substance, but god damn it's beautiful, and you can use a cat to find assassins. What more do you want? Slime Rancher, a pretty neat little farming game where you farm slime, and I'm pretty sure some people are going to ask if you could put your dick in them. Drawn to Death, I know some people didn't like this game, but this is essentially if Overwatch was done by Sonic Team during its shadow phase, and it's pretty edgy and that's pretty fun to me. Battle Chef Brigade, a very, very nice little puzzle game with a pretty charming story. The ending was a bit shit though, to be honest. We then have Everything, which is weird, but then again, so is the game. Everybody's Golf claims it's for everybody, but it's a PS4 exclusive, so it's false advertising, but pretty fun, except some of the courses are dicks. Space Plan is cookie clicker with a point, and an ending, which is kind of surprising. The Sexy Brutal is essentially watching someone die 100 times before you finally decide to save them by using puzzles. And the final game is Wrestling Revolution 3D. Hysterical and somewhat still more enjoyable than the current WWE game. And a honourable mention to a somewhat rule-breaking game, which, because it's a DLC, the Episode Prompto Final Fantasy 15 DLC. Absolutely amazing. If this was its own game, it would have been on the list. This is pretty much the best DLC I've played in decades. Right then, let's get into the games, and the first game, which pretty much goes to show why Japan was better at the West at everything this year, Yakuza Zero. Yakuza Zero has two great strengths to it. The first of which is the balance of its serious story with the wackiness of everything else in the game. You can go from Yakuza telling you how he has a tragic backstory and how he's going to kill you, to fighting them with dancing, and it's done so seamlessly, I think that's what it's called, seamlessly, that it doesn't feel like there's two different things. It feels that both are perfectly connected. And even if the story isn't your thing, there are still a ton of side quests and side stories and activities, which brings me on to the second reason that this game is done so well, is when you take a look at it far, the worlds that it gives to you, the cities that you are presented with, aren't that big, but they pack so much into them that the whole thing still feels alive and vivid, and you can explore everything and nothing feels wasteful. And it's those two things that after playing this game, I bought the remake of the first game because I wanted to play the rest of the series. This game got me into the Yakuza series, and that's why it's on the list. But not every game is from Japan, otherwise I look like a weeaboo, because the next game is from California, Fire. Supergiant Games have this thing where every 3 years they'll come down, present a new out-of-the-box game, and disappear for 3 more years. And Fire is this year's presentation. And I think I could explain why this game is good by a moment that I have from the game. Essentially, I was on an undefeated streak, basically beating every other team, and this was a very important match. I lost that match because one of my team asked me to lose because they wanted their sister to be saved. That alone, I think, is why Fire is such an amazing game, because of its story and its characters. It has a very, very charming story with a lot of very, very well done characters. And the thing is, as you progress through the game, if you keep winning, then you lose characters as you save them from limbo, or was it purgatory? Yeah, purgatory. And once they're gone, they're gone. You can't get them back. So you essentially could lose your waifu or husbando, and you have to try and strategize with others. And yeah, it can get repetitive. You do face the same teams over and over again. But the whole story makes it monotonous, not feel that bad. And of course, you could just see visually it is outstanding. So yeah, thanks a lot, Supergiant Games. See you in 3 more years. And now we come to the Captain Obvious Award for the game that was most likely going to end up on this list, Kingdom Hearts 2.8. Now, I think everyone knows that this is not the game we're waiting for. We are waiting for the infamous number 3. And if Square Enix aren't a bunch of lying bastards, we are getting that soon. But 2.8 is a pretty decent pit stop or station on the hype train. I mean, Dream Drop Distance has quite a lot of bullshit to it, but its mechanics are so different that it makes it stand out to the rest of the games. And honestly, I've played worse games from the Kingdom Hearts series, so I think this is like my 4th favorite if I put it on the list. 0.2 I've already made a video about, but basically it's a very well made demo which pretty much goes to show what Kingdom Hearts 3 could be like, but it is a demo. And Unchained it's a thing. I mean, when you compare this to the other two collections, it is the weakest, but I still think it's a very, very decent little end, and hopefully it will be the final collection before the infamous number 3. And speaking of 3, that brings us on to the next game, Danganronpa V3. I was a little bit worried when this game was about to come out, because I was worried that it was not going to live up to the rest of the series. But it didn't just live up to it, it nearly surpassed it. This game was outstanding with its story, and I know some people don't like the end. I know a lot of people hated the ending, and that's fine, but to me, the risks this game took were worth it, and it got me so invested into the plot. And yeah, the characters, many of the characters are quite unlikable, but there are still some characters I'm pretty sure everyone can enjoy. For me, it was the space boy, space beard man, who looks a bit like Leon, I guess. But it brings, and I think that, like I said, the strongest point for it is its story to me. It was probably the most investing story And to me, this ended up becoming my second favourite game for the series, not passing Trigger Happy Havoc, because I don't think any of it is going to pass that one. But by God, this exceeded my expectations. It's such a shame, though, this is the only Spike Chunsoft game on the list. And the next game is from, what company is it? Oh fuck, it's Spike Chunsoft. It's Fire Pro Wrestling World. Now, here's the thing. The WWE games are trying to become more and more realistic, and in doing so I think it's taking away from the enjoyment. Fire Pro Wrestling World goes back to the sort of very arcadey style, even to the point where it has the somewhat ugly graphics, and to me that's what makes it work. It is essentially an arcade fighter that is a wrestling game. But the biggest thing to me was, is the customization good? Yes, it is. That was the one thing that got me invested into it, is whether or not I could create whatever wrestler, or maybe even fictional characters I can have fighting. So I can have my weird head cannon fighting match style things. And thank God I can, because of this game. Because, yeah, Fire Pro Wrestling World is... I think if you're a wrestling fan, you've already got it. But if not, then... basically blame Spike Chunsoft, because they make great games, and I'm mad at them. They need to stop making great games, because they've ended up on this list like several times. I don't think they've ever been not on the list. Well, I don't have a good transition to the next game, so here is the next game, Splatoon 2. Now, you might be noticing that this is not Splatoon gameplay. Well, I think we all know about Nintendo's pretty shitty policy with videos, so I'm keeping it safe and just giving you a representation of the game. And here's the thing, Splatoon 2 is annoying. It can have really bad matchmaking, which means you could go against a very powerful team. Some of the weapons are a bitch, especially the sniper guns and the rollers, and sometimes the ability chunks that you get make it feel a bit unfair. So with all that in mind, why is this game on the list? Well, it's the game that made me buy the Switch. As someone who is loyal to Sony, this was the game that made me turn to the Nintendo side. I still have the PS4, but still I have now a Switch as well. I'm sorry, Sony gods, please don't kill me. But apart from that, there is some good to it. The sound runs are really exciting, they're really fun, and even if they are a challenge in a way, they are a challenge. And if you have a good team, then even you will be able to consider yourself to be a professional gamer. But the other thing is, when you get the right weapon and the right equipment and the right abilities, and you're on a really good run, then it feels amazing. And then you come back the next game and you completely fuck everything up, and then you get mad. And that's essentially what every shooter is like. And that's why Splatoon 2 is on the list, because another thing is as well is it does stand out. With the whole, you don't just attack your enemies, you have to cover the floor, and the one who wins covers the most floor is the winner. So there is strategy to it. So yeah, if you're into sort of painting the town red or pink or lime green, then this is the game for you. However, this is not the only Nintendo game on the list, as we go into Super Mario Odyssey. Now, here's the thing. When the Switch was coming out, I thought it was Nintendo trying to run away from their problems of the Wii U and try and sort of essentially just cover it all up, and that they had not learned anything, and the Switch was going to bomb, and it was going to be a train wreck, and it would probably lead to them pulling out of the console wars and just sticking to handheld. I saw that as a retreat, when in reality it was a rebirth, and I think Super Mario Odyssey is the perfect representation of this rebirth of Nintendo, because there is so much to this game that stands out. Mario has a personality, for one thing. He actually has some sort of character, which is odd because he's Mario and usually he's just a placement for Nintendo. There is sort of customization. You can make Mario into a top hat wearing boxer short runner or something like that. And even the story, the simple trope story of Bowser kidnapping the princess, I was very invested in that for some reason. Yeah, there isn't a lot. I would say that facing the right bosses over and over again were a pain because you could just know exactly how to beat them. But yeah, I think everyone has said why Super Mario Odyssey is a masterpiece of gaming. So I'm not going to add anything else to it. If you have a Switch, then you've probably already got it. But if you haven't got a Switch and you want to get Mario Odyssey, then take one of your friends' Switches and their copy of the game, because I'm pretty sure they have the copy. But speaking of hats and platformers, that takes us on to the next game, A Hat in Time. Now, here's the thing. This game had quite a bit going against it because it was a Kickstarter game that had quite a bit of focus on nostalgia. But here's the thing that made it stand out. It wasn't the fact that it is a very, very charming game, but it was its own game. It didn't rely on sort of the games of the past to make itself its own. It relied on a great team that knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted it to make a game that was inspired by the platformers of old, but still its own game. And in my view, and I know this is a bit blasphemous, it has better controls than in Odyssey because I felt more free and alive with my movement. There is so much charm to this game as well. The worlds are beautiful in its cartoony style. The voice acting, whilst a little cheesy, is also quite again, charming. I actually thought that one of the voice actors was the one who does Tracer in Overwatch. I was wrong though, which made me a bit sad. There is one voice actor though, it's JonTron. Make of that what you will. But what essentially this game is, it is essentially just a big ball of charm. And if you're into that sort of stuff, then yeah, go get Hat in Time. Now, we move on to the next platformer, and one that has quite a lot of bias towards it, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. Now, when Activision said that they were going to be the ones working on it, I sort of shit myself, because holy shit, it's Activision. They're the ones that killed Crash Bandicoot. But no, they actually did quite a decent job in essentially bringing back the original 3 games. And I'm glad they did, because basically, first of all, it's Crash Bandicoot, and it is my childhood. It was what got me into gaming. And second of all, it's brought it into a new audience, a new younger audience, who may have not known about Crash Bandicoot, and now they get to play the first 3 games and complain about the high road being far too difficult because of the controls. But like I said, there is not much to say. It is essentially the original 3 games, just remade and remastered in high definition. And if you're into Crash Bandicoot, then you've already got it. But if you're looking to get into Crash Bandicoot, then this is the series for you. Now, if they can make the remake of Crash Team Racing, that would be perfect. Please make a remake of Crash Team Racing, please. I want to go karting with Bandicoot again. Anyway, moving on to another. I don't have a transition for this game, so let's just talk about it. Superhot for the PlayStation 4. I didn't get this for PC last year because I knew it would have blown up my PC, but it came out for PS4, so it counts for this list. And I'm glad I did, because essentially we all know what the whole thing is. Time moves only when you move. So when you move, everyone else moves. And that brings a lot of strategy. Because instead of just running in and shooting everyone, you have to plan how you get through it. And even when you think you're done with it, more men will come to attack you. So essentially, it is a little bit trial and error. But I would say that it's because of that trial and error that it keeps it very investing. And a lot of people will say, and I will say it too, that this is the most innovative shooter they've ever played. And I can't say any more, because if I do, it will get quite mad. And I don't want it to get quite mad. Speaking of death, that takes us on to the next game, Peace Death. Peace Death essentially uses the same mechanics as Papers, Please. But whereas Papers, Please was more about looking at detail and it being a very sad, depressing game, Peace Death is more about quick decisions with a bit of quirkiness to it. It's the sort of game that I would say is a lunch break game. If this was on the Switch or Vita or God, be it the mobile phone. It would be the sort of game that you could essentially pick up for like 15 minutes and have a quick little play, and then afterwards you put it down, and the next time you come back you know exactly what to do. And that is a very, very good thing. And by the end of it, when you finally get to that final exam and you do everything, you will then realize that you're not a B+ Death Grim Reaper. And that will make you quite sad, as it did with me. And another very, what I call lunch break game is Mania. I hope I get it right, it's Mania. It essentially is a sort of training strategy game with gladiators. So you can essentially get these weak and feeble gladiators, and then you train them up to become the supreme gladiator, or they end up dead by the halfway and you get pissed off. One thing though, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but one thing that really made me laugh was, by the end of it, my own men turned on me and ripped me limb from limb, and I was proud of that, because it made me feel like I had done my job, which was weird. I'm proud that my own men killed me. And like I said, it's another one of those lunch break games, another game that I feel that you could play for 15 minutes, and then put down, and then you come back and you know exactly what you're doing. So yeah, that's Mania. Nothing much to say. It's a pretty quirky little nice little Romanian or gladiator strategy game, but I love. And another, I don't have a transition for this game, so let's just talk about it. South Park: The Fractured Butthole. South Park: The Fractured Butthole it's great. It's essentially a game for fans, and it's really, really good if you are a South Park fan. This essentially is a superhero based where everyone essentially is sort of parodying all the superhero movies, but it also does it so well with its gameplay. Gone is the turn-based element that was from the Stick of Truth, and now it's a sort of grid-based battle with some strategy. So not only are you planning your move, but you also have to plan in advance about what the opponents could do to you. So you have to plan in advance. Or mostly, if you're like me, you just go in and beat everyone and hope that your characters don't end up dead. And like I said, this is essentially a game for fans, and so it brings a lot of references, but also is the world of South Park. When you really take a step back, it is quite small, but it feels bigger than it actually is. And there is quite a lot of bits that you can do with it on your superhero ways of being a kid who dresses up like, I don't know, you'd probably dress up like a cat. I think you could dress up like a cat in this game. I haven't. I think I dressed up like a homeless person last time. But yeah, that's essentially the Stick of Truth. Go get it if you're a South Park fan. And now we come to the penultimate game, the game before the final game, Nier Automata. Nier Automata didn't interest me at first. I saw it at first as a hack and slash type game with a nice looking anime woman with butts. And it is that. But it's so much more, because in my view, this is not one of the best storytellings in games. This is one of the best stories in storytelling, period. It is a beautiful blend of the madness of Yoko Taro and the great combat gameplay of Platinum Games. It's also mixing with amazing music and great empty scenery that essentially makes it feel like how bleak the world has become. And I don't want to say much, because I feel if I do, I will spoil a lot of it. But there is a reason that many people consider this to be one of the greatest games of the year. I think that if I did this in a countdown list, this would have been number one. That's how much had this game impact me. Honestly, I don't want to say too much, but this is a masterpiece of video gaming. That's all I'm going to say basically on this. And now we come to the final game, aka I'm pretty sure the only game that everyone came to see, Persona 5. Persona 5 goes to show that good things come to those who wait, because this has been going on since like 2014, and it was delayed, but you get the idea. Now it came out, and goodness, it's great. the gameplay is pretty much, it feels more smoother, it feels there's a lot more to it. I love that you can sneaking around the entire the palaces. So essentially it's not just running in and attacking the enemy, it's about planning when you attack them. I love the start. I'm glad they went for the Catherine look rather than just the traditional Persona look, because it looks so much better. The characters have much more expressions when it comes to the Catherine look. And I would say that Persona 4 Golden is still my favourite from the series. I like that more. I think it had better characters. But that's not to say that Persona 5 had really terrible characters. The characters in this game are memorable and and lovely, even if there are some moments where I feel that they're massive cunts. And I'd say even the main protagonist, the little details they give to him doesn't make him feel like just an avatar that you're controlling. He actually does say something sometimes, and that alone gives him a character. So it's stuff like that makes this game stand, that makes this game really, really good. And yeah, now we just got to wait for the massive amount of spin-offs, including the dancing and the arena and maybe go-karting. Yeah, Persona Go-Kart, let's have one of those. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure that's all the games I wanted to talk about. And yeah, hope you enjoy your Christmas, and I will see you, I don't know when. Goodbye.